Deep inside the UES Determination, in a section of the ship that most crew members had never seen, something extraordinary was happening. Chief Engineer Han Sora stood in front of a wall covered with screens and control panels. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she watched numbers and graphs change on the displays. "Captain," she called through her communication device, "quantum analysis systems are fully online. We are reading Vorthak biomechanical patterns across their entire fleet. The algorithms are working perfectly." Captain Park's voice came back through the speakers. "How long until we can begin full disruption?" Han Sora looked at her main display. It showed the enemy fleet as thousands of small dots, each one pulsing with the same rhythm. 10 minutes, sir. But Captain, once we start the process, we cannot stop it. The quantum disruption field will expand in all directions. Any ship within 50 light minutes will be affected, including our own ship?" "Yes, sir. The disruption field is too powerful to contain. Our own quantum systems will be destroyed along with the enemy's." Han Sora had helped design the quantum disruption array 6 months ago, when human scientists first captured a piece of Vorthak technology. They had studied the strange biomechanical systems for weeks, trying to understand how living tissue could be perfectly integrated with mechanical components. The secret was quantum entanglement. Every cell in a Vorthak ship's living parts was quantum linked to specific mechanical systems. When a biocomponent was damaged, the mechanical parts would repair it. When a mechanical part broke, the biocomponents would grow a replacement. But quantum entanglement worked both ways. If you could disrupt the quantum connections, both the living and mechanical parts would fail at the same time. The ships would become nothing but dead metal and dead flesh floating in space. The problem was creating a disruption field powerful enough to affect an entire enemy fleet. It required enormous amounts of energy and incredibly precise calculations. The quantum processors needed to map every connection in thousands of enemy ships and then generate exactly the right interference pattern. Human scientists had spent months designing the system. They had built quantum computers that could think faster than anything else in the galaxy. They had created power systems that could channel the energy of a small star. They had developed field generators that could affect space itself. But the system was too large and too powerful to use more than once. Any ship that carried it would be destroyed when the field activated. That was why only one ship could carry the weapon, and that was why the crew of that ship would not survive to see their victory. "Captain," said Han Sora, "I need to tell you something about the disruption process." "What is it, Sora?" "Sir, the quantum field will not activate instantly. It will take approximately 5 minutes to build up to full power. During that time, the enemy will be able to see what we are doing. They will try to stop us. Can they stop us once we begin? Not if we stay within range of their flagship. But Captain, those 5 minutes will be very difficult. Every Vorthak ship in the area will focus their fire on us." Captain Park was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Sora, how many people live on the planets the Vorthak have not yet reached?" "Trillions, sir. Hundreds of different species across thousands of worlds. Then 5 minutes seems like a fair price to pay." On the bridge, Captain Park watched as his ship approached the center of the enemy fleet. Around them, Vorthak vessels moved to intercept. Some fired their biomechanical weapons, but the shots passed harmlessly through space where the Determination had been seconds before. "Captain," said Weapons Officer Kim Dong-soo, "I am tracking 47 enemy ships moving to surround us. They know we are targeting their flagship." "Let them come," replied Captain Park. "In 3 minutes, it will not matter how many ships they have." First Officer Choi Yun-ji looked at her tactical display. "Sir, the Allied fleet is reporting that all friendly vessels have moved to minimum safe distance." "We are alone in the engagement zone." Captain Park nodded. "The alien ships had pulled back to avoid being caught in the quantum disruption field. If the human plan worked, they would be safe. If it failed, they would be the galaxy's last hope against the Vorthak." "Han Sora," called Captain Park, "begin quantum disruption sequence." In the engineering section, Han Sora took a deep breath and pressed the activation control. Throughout the ship, systems that had been waiting in standby mode came to full power. The 3 fusion reactors increased their output to maximum levels. Quantum processors began calculations that would have taken other computers years to complete. On her main screen, Han Sora watched as the disruption field began to form around their ship. It was invisible to normal sensors, but her instruments could detect it as a growing sphere of quantum interference. "Disruption field activated," she reported. Field strength increasing. Current radius, 1,000 kilometers and expanding. Aboard the Vorthak flagship Devourer Prime, Hive Admiral Zixthul felt something wrong happening in the space around the human ship. Its biomechanical senses detected strange vibrations in the quantum fields that connected all its vessels. All ships, it commanded, focus fire on the human vessel. Destroy it immediately. Dozens of Vorthak ships turned toward the Determination and fired their most powerful weapons. Streams of living acid crossed space toward the human ship. Biomechanical missiles launched like angry wasps, energy beams that could melt planets focused on the small vessel. But Captain Park had planned for this moment. Kim, activate defensive systems. Keep us alive for 4 more minutes. The Determination's shields flared to life, deflecting the enemy fire. The ship twisted and turned through space, avoiding the worst attacks. Some shots got through, causing explosions along the hull. But the ship continued forward. Hull damage on decks 7 and 12 and reported first. Officer Choi. But all critical systems are still operational. Field strength increasing. Called Han So-ra from engineering. Current radius 15,000 kilometers. We are beginning to affect the smaller enemy vessels. On the tactical display, Captain Park could see Vorthak ships at the edge of the disruption field beginning to experience problems. Their biomechanical systems flickered and failed. Ships that had been firing weapons moments before now drifted powerless in space. But the enemy flagship was still too far away. The Determination needed to get closer. Kim, said Captain Park, take us directly toward the Devourer Prime. Maximum speed. Sir, that will take us through their heaviest defenses. I know. Do it anyway. The human ship accelerated toward the massive enemy flagship. More Vorthak vessels moved to block their path, firing everything they had. The space around the Determination filled with weapons fire and explosions. Field strength increasing, reported Han So-ra. Current radius, 30,000 kilometers. We are affecting medium-sized enemy vessels now. Hive Admiral Zixthul realized what was happening. The human ship was not carrying conventional weapons. It was carrying something that attacked the quantum foundations of Vorthak technology itself. All vessels ramming speed, it commanded. Destroy that ship before it reaches full power. 6 Vorthak cruisers turned directly toward the Determination, planning to crash into it and destroy it through collision. But as they approached, they entered the quantum disruption field and their systems began to fail. Field strength increasing, called Han So-ra. Current radius, 45,000 kilometers. Captain, we are almost within range of the enemy flagship. Time to full activation? Asked Captain Park. 90 seconds, sir. Around them the battle had become chaos. Vorthak ships that were still outside the disruption field continued to fire at the human vessel. Ships inside the field drifted helplessly as their quantum systems failed. The Determination continued forward, damaged but still functional. Captain, said First Officer Choi, we have lost engines 3 and 4. Hull breaches on 8 decks, but we are still on course for the flagship. Han So-ra, called Captain Park. How much longer? 60 seconds, sir. But Captain, our own systems are beginning to fail. The disruption field is affecting us too. Captain Park could feel it. The lights on the bridge flickered. Some of the control panels went dark. The ship shuddered as its quantum-linked systems began to break down. 30 seconds, reported Han So-ra. Field radius 48,000 kilometers. We are almost within range of the flagship. The massive Devourer Prime tried to turn away, but it was too large and slow to escape. Hive Admiral Zixthul felt the quantum disruption field, approaching its ship like a wave of death. 20 seconds, called Han So-ra. All enemy vessels within the field are losing power. Seconds, she continued. Captain, it has been an honor serving with you. Captain Park looked around the bridge at his crew. First Officer Choi Yoon-ji sat calmly at her station, monitoring systems that were failing one by one. Weapons Officer Kim Dong-soo continued tracking enemy ships even though his weapons were no longer needed. The honor has been mine, said Captain Park, for Earth, for humanity, for all the species that will live because of what we do. Today, field activation complete, reported Han So-ra. Quantum, disruption at maximum power. The invisible field expanded from the Determination like a wave passing through space itself. The Vorthak fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a disease spreading across the stars. 2,000 ships of different sizes moved together in perfect formation, The smallest vessels were the size of city blocks. The largest ships were like floating mountains covered in metal and flesh. From the bridge of the UES Determination, Captain Park Ji-ho watched the enemy fleet approach on his main screen. Each Vorthak ship looked like it had grown instead of being built. Their hulls curved like living things, but they were covered with mechanical weapons and armor. They pulsed with a sickly green light that made them look infected. "Captain," said Weapons Officer Kim Dong-soo, "I am reading energy signatures from the enemy fleet. Their biomechanical systems are operating at full power." "Good," replied Captain Park. "That will make our job easier." At the center of the Vorthak formation was their flagship, a massive vessel called the Devourer Prime. It was 7 kilometers long and shaped like a giant worm made of metal and bone. Green lights ran along its length like veins carrying poison. Captain Park knew that inside that ship, 1 million Vorthak warriors were preparing for battle. The flagship was controlled by Hive Admiral Zixthul, a creature that was part of the ship itself. Its consciousness was spread through the entire vessel, controlling everything from weapons to life support. It could think with 1,000,000 different minds all at the same time. Pathetic, Hive Admiral Zixthul thought as it studied the opposing fleet. Another collection of primitive races trying to stop the inevitable. They will feed us well. The battle began exactly as the alien commanders had planned. Crystal ships fired beams of pure energy that could cut through planets. Water ships launched living weapons that changed shape as they flew through space. Metal ships twisted into new forms to avoid enemy fire. The Vorthak responded with their own terrible weapons. Biomechanical cannons shot streams of acid that ate through any material. Living missiles chased enemy ships like hungry animals. Some Vorthak vessels opened their hulls to release swarms of smaller craft that attacked like metal insects. Explosions filled the space between the fleets. Ships on both sides took damage and returned fire. The alien forces fought bravely, using all their special abilities to hurt the enemy. But Captain Park could see that the battle was going exactly as it had before in other systems. The Vorthak ships were taking damage, but their biomechanical systems were already healing the wounds. Holes in their hulls sealed themselves. Broken weapons grew back. Destroyed sections regenerated like living tissue. "Captain," said First Officer Choi Yun-ji, "the Allied fleet is requesting our assistance. Chancellor Vextar says his ships need support on the left flank. Tell them we are beginning our approach." "To the primary target," replied Captain Park. "All other vessels should maintain safe distance from the enemy flagship." "Sir," said Chief Engineer Han Sora from her station, "should I begin the pre-activation sequence now?" Captain Park looked at the tactical display. The Determination was still far from the enemy fleet, but they would need time to prepare their special weapon. "Yes, Sora, begin the sequence." Chief Engineer Han Sora's hands moved quickly over her control panels. Deep inside the ship, systems that had been sleeping began to wake up. The quantum processors started their calculations. Power flowed from the ship's 3 fusion reactors into arrays that most of the crew had never seen. "Quantum analysis systems coming online," reported Han Sora. Scanning Vorthak biomechanical integration patterns across their fleet. On the main screen, Captain Park watched as his ship moved through the battlefield. Explosions flashed around them as other vessels fought desperately against the enemy. The Determination moved between the larger ships like a small fish swimming between whales. "Captain," called Kim Dong-soo, "we have incoming. 12 Vorthak cruisers are moving to intercept us." Captain Park nodded. He had expected this. The enemy would not let them approach the flagship without a fight. The first Vorthak ship that attacked the Determination was called a Flesh Render. It was 300 meters long and covered with weapons that shot streams of living acid. As it approached the human ship, its biomechanical systems pulsed with confidence. Then something strange happened. The Flesh Render's weapons stopped working. Its hull began to shake and twist. Green lights flickered and went out. Within 30 seconds, the entire ship was drifting dead in space. "What happened to that ship?" demanded Warsinger Thexani over the communication system. "What weapon did the humans use?" Captain Park opened a channel to the Allied fleet. "This is the Determination. We are testing our systems. All Allied vessels, please maintain distance from our ship." A second Vorthak vessel attacked, then a third. Each time the same thing happened. The enemy ships would approach the human vessel, then suddenly lose all power and drift helplessly in space. Hive Admiral Zixthol noticed the pattern from its flagship. Something is wrong, it thought. Our ships are experiencing system failures near the human vessel. What kind of weapon causes such effects? The alien commanders noticed too. Chancellor Vextar studied his sensor readings carefully. The human ship was not firing any visible weapons. There were no energy beams, no missiles, no particle streams. But every Vorthak ship that came near it simply stopped working. Captain Park called Admiral Kethmora over the communication system. What is happening to the enemy ships? Our sensors show no weapon discharge from your vessel. Admiral, replied Captain Park, we are not using conventional weapons. We are using something much more precise. Chief Engineer Hansora looked up from her controls. Captain, quantum analysis is complete. We have mapped the connection patterns for the entire enemy fleet. All Vorthak vessels are using the same base frequency for their biomechanical integration. Perfect, said Captain Park. How long until we can begin full-scale disruption? We need to get closer to the flagship, she replied. The quantum field has limited range. Once we are within 50,000 kilometers of the Devourer Prime, we can affect their entire fleet. Captain Park looked at the tactical display. They were still 100,000 kilometers from the enemy flagship. Around them, the battle continued to rage. Allied ships fought desperately, but they were losing ground. The Vorthak biomechanical systems were too good at healing damage. Kim, he said to his weapons officer, prepare the ship for close approach. We are going straight for their flagship. Sir, said Kim Dong-soo, that will take us through the center of their defensive formation. Every Vorthak ship between here and there will try to stop us. I know, said Captain Park, but they cannot stop what they do not understand. First Officer Choi Yun-ji looked worried. Captain, once we begin full-scale quantum disruption, there will be no turning back. The energy requirements will destroy our own systems too. Captain Park nodded slowly. I know, Yun-ji. Everyone on this ship knows what we signed up for. He opened a communication channel to the entire crew. This is the captain speaking. In 15 minutes, we will begin our final approach to the enemy flagship. All crew members should prepare for quantum disruption protocol. Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every species in the galaxy that deserves to live free. Throughout the ship, men and women at their stations nodded grimly. Chief Engineer Han So-ra checked her systems one more time. Weapons Officer Kim Dong-soo calculated their approach vector. First Officer Choi Yun-ji coordinated with all departments to make sure everything was ready. On the main screen, the massive shape of the Devourer Prime grew larger as they approached. Green lights pulsed along its biomechanical hull like the heartbeat of some terrible monster. Captain Park could imagine the million warriors inside preparing to defend their ship, but they were preparing for the wrong kind of battle. They expected energy weapons and missiles. They expected brute force and overwhelming firepower. They were not prepared for humans who solved problems by understanding them completely. Kepler Station was like a metal city floating in space. Ships from dozens of different worlds surrounded it like a cloud of metal insects. The station had many arms stretching out in all directions, and each arm had docking ports for visiting vessels. Captain Park Ji-ho stood at the window of his quarters aboard the Determination and counted the ships he could see. There were more than 1,000 vessels gathered here. Some were as big as mountains, others were as small as fighters. All of them had come to fight the Vorthak. A message came through his communication system. Captain Park, please report to the main briefing room on Kepler Station. Fleet Admiral Kethmora wants to speak with all ship commanders. Captain Park put on his best uniform and took a shuttle to the station. The briefing room was enormous, big enough to hold representatives from hundreds of different species. As he entered, he saw aliens of all shapes and sizes sitting at tables arranged in circles. Fleet Admiral Kethmora was one of the Star Wanderers. His people looked like tall humans, but their skin was silver, and their eyes were completely black. They had been traveling through space longer than any other race in the galaxy. Welcome, commanders, said Admiral Kethmora. His voice was deep and serious. The Vorthak fleet will arrive in 15 hours. We have gathered the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Today we will discuss how to use it. A huge holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the Vorthak fleet approaching through space. There were 2,000 ships of different sizes, all of them looking like a mixture of living creatures and machines. The enemy has numerical superiority, continued Admiral Kethmora, but we have advantages too. We have ships from many different worlds with many different types of weapons and defenses. The Vorthak have never faced such a diverse force. Chancellor Vextar of the Crystal People stood up. His diamond-like body reflected the light from the holographic display. My ships will lead the first attack, he announced. Our energy weapons are the most powerful in the galaxy. We will break their front lines. High Tide Zermala of the Water People rose next. My vessels will follow behind the crystal ships. Our bioweapons can adapt to any defense. We will exploit the weaknesses the Etherians create. Warsinger Thexani of the Metal People made her glass-breaking laugh. While you two attack from the front, my ships will circle around and hit them from the sides. Our shape-changing hulls can avoid their weapons. One by one, the alien commanders presented their battle plans. Each species wanted to use their special abilities to help win the fight. The Crystal People had the strongest energy weapons. The Water People had living weapons that could change during battle. The Metal People had ships that could reshape themselves. Admiral Kethamora listened to all the plans and nodded. These are good strategies. We will coordinate all attacks to— Excuse me, said a quiet voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look. Captain Park Ji-ho was standing at one of the smaller tables reserved for minor fleet contributions. Most of the alien commanders had forgotten that the humans were even there. Yes, Captain Park, said Admiral Kethamora. What is humanity's contribution to our battle plan? Captain Park walked forward so everyone could see him. He looked very small compared to some of the giant alien commanders around him. The UES determination will engage the Vorthak command ship directly, he said in a calm voice. We request that all other vessels maintain a safe distance and focus on evacuating civilian populations from threatened systems. The briefing room became completely silent. Captain Park could hear the air circulation systems humming in the walls. Every alien in the room was staring at him. Chancellor Vextar was the first to speak. Captain, did you say you plan to attack their command ship? Directly? Yes. High Tide Zermala's water body began to bubble with confusion. Their flagship is 7 kilometers long. It carries 1 million warriors. How can your single ship— Captain Park, interrupted Warsinger Thexani. Are you planning to ram their ship? Is this some kind of human honor ritual? Captain Park remained calm. Something like that, he said. The alien commanders began talking all at once. Some laughed, which sounded like breaking glass or rushing water or ringing bells. Others made angry sounds in their own languages. A few just stared at the human in disbelief. This is madness, shouted an insect-like commander. One small ship cannot destroy their flagship. The human has lost his mind, said another alien. The stress of facing the Vorthak has broken his brain. Admiral Kethamora raised his hand for silence. Captain Park, I respect human courage, but wisdom is also important in war. Your ship will be destroyed in seconds if you approach their flagship. Perhaps, said Captain Park, but we will complete our mission first. What mission? Demanded Chancellor Vextar. What can one ship do against such a massive vessel? Captain Park looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked worried about him. Some looked angry at his stupidity. Some looked confused by human behavior. Admiral Kethamora, he said, how many Vorthak ships have been permanently destroyed in all the battles fought so far? The Star Wanderer Admiral was quiet for a moment. Permanently destroyed? None. Their biomechanical systems can repair almost any damage. We have disabled many ships temporarily, but they always regenerate. Exactly, said Captain Park. Every strategy you have discussed today is based on the idea of fighting them with conventional weapons. Energy beams, bioweapons, kinetic projectiles. All of these have been tried before. All of them have failed. Then what do you suggest? Asked High Tide Zermala. If our weapons cannot hurt them, how do we win? By not using weapons at all, said Captain Park. By solving the problem instead of trying to overpower it. Warsinger Thexani made a sound like scraping metal. Solve the problem? Captain, the problem is 2,000 enemy ships with weapons that can destroy planets. How do you solve that without fighting? Captain Park smiled slightly. By understanding what makes them work. Every Vorthak ship depends on quantum connections between living and mechanical parts. Break those connections and the ships become just dead metal and dead flesh. The room became quiet again. Several alien commanders leaned forward with interest. You have found a way to break their quantum connections? Asked Admiral Kethamora. Yes, but it requires a very specific approach. The weapon system must be precisely calibrated and positioned exactly right. One ship in the right place with the right equipment can disable their entire fleet. Chancellor Vextar's crystal body flashed with colors of confusion. One weapon can disable 2,000 ships, if it is the right weapon used in the right way at the right time. The alien commanders looked at each other with their strange eyes. Some were beginning to look hopeful instead of just confused. "Captain Park," said Admiral Kethmora, "if this is true, why did Ambassador Lee not explain this to the Galactic Council?" "Because," said Captain Park, "the weapon can only be used once, and the ship that uses it will be destroyed in the process." The briefing room became very quiet again. Now the aliens understood why humans had sent only one ship. It was not because they were weak or stupid. It was because one ship was all they needed, and one ship was all they could afford to lose. "You are planning a suicide mission," said High Tide Zermala softly. "We are planning a victory," Captain Park corrected. "The cost is high, but the result will save billions of lives across the galaxy." Admiral Kethmora stood up slowly. "Captain Park, if your plan works, you will be remembered as heroes throughout the galaxy." "If our plan works," said Captain Park, "no one will need to remember us. They will be too busy living in peace." The UES Determination moved through the darkness of space like a metal fish, swimming through an endless black ocean. From the outside, it looked like many other human ships. It was 800 meters long with straight lines and sharp angles. The hull was dark gray and small lights blinked along its sides. To alien eyes watching from far away, the ship seemed ordinary. It was much smaller than the huge crystal ships of the Etherians. It did not glow with biolight like the vessels of the Deep Ones. It did not change shape like the ships of the Star Wanderers. The Determination looked plain and simple, but inside the ship something special was happening. Captain Park Jiho sat in his command chair on the bridge. He was a man in his 40s with short black hair and serious eyes. He had been a starship captain for 15 years, and he had never lost a ship or failed a mission. Today he was reading reports on a small screen attached to his chair. "Captain," said a voice behind him, "I have the final systems report." Captain Park turned to see Chief Engineer Han So-Ra walking toward him. She was a young woman with bright eyes and oil stains on her uniform. Han So-Ra knew every part of the Determination better than anyone else alive. She had helped build some of the ship's most important systems. "How do we look, So-Ra?" the captain asked. "All systems are running perfectly," she said with a smile. "The quantum processors are stable. The power cores are operating at 100%, and the main array is ready for activation when you give the word." Captain Park nodded. The main array was the most important part of the ship, but he could not think about that yet. "There was still work to do, Captain," called another voice. This time it was Weapons Officer Kim Dong-soo. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. "I have finished studying the Vorthak battle records. What did you learn?" asked Captain Park. Kim Dong-soo walked over and handed the captain a data pad. "Their ships are very strong, but they all work in the same way. Every Vorthak vessel uses biomechanical technology. Living parts and machine parts work together through quantum connections." "Quantum connections," repeated Captain Park. "That is what we expected." "Yes, sir. But I found something interesting. All their ships use the same quantum frequency. It is like they are all connected to each other through invisible strings." Captain Park smiled. "Perfect. That makes our job much easier." First Officer Choi Yunji heard this conversation from her station nearby. She was a tall woman with short hair and a worried expression. She had been Captain Park's second in command for 3 years, and she trusted him completely. But this mission made her nervous. "Captain," she said quietly, "may I speak with you privately?" Captain Park stood up and walked with her to a quiet corner of the bridge. The other crew members continued working at their stations, checking systems and preparing for battle. "What is on your mind, Yunji?" he asked. "Sir, I understand our mission. I know what this ship was built to do. But facing the entire Vorthak fleet with just one vessel..." She paused and looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "Even with our advantages, the odds are impossible." Captain Park looked out through the bridge windows at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien ships were gathering at Kepler Station. Soon they would all face the Vorthak together. "Yunji," he said, "do you know why other species call humans the builders?" She shook her head. "Most alien races become masters of one thing," he explained. "The Etherians understand energy better than anyone. The Deep Ones know how to work with living systems. The Star Wanderers are the best at traveling through space. Each species finds one thing and becomes perfect at it. And humans? She asked. Humans are different. We do not become perfect at one thing. Instead, we learn how to make different things work together. We take ideas from many places and combine them into something new. This ship represents 200 years of human engineering philosophy. Captain Park pointed to the walls around them. Every system on this ship was designed to work with every other system. Our weapons talk to our engines. Our computers talk to our life support. Our sensors talk to our shields. Everything is connected. But Captain, the Vorthak have been fighting for thousands of years. They have conquered 17 worlds. What makes you think our one ship can succeed where entire fleets have failed? Captain Park was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because we are not trying to be bigger or stronger than them. We are trying to be smarter. Chief Engineer Han Sora called out from across the bridge. Captain, we are approaching Kepler Station. I can see the Allied fleet on our sensors. Captain Park and First Officer Choi returned to their stations. On the main screen, they could see hundreds of ships gathered around a large space station. There were crystal ships that sparkled like jewels, organic vessels that pulsed with life, and metal craft that changed their shape as they moved. Communications, said Captain Park. Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them the UES determination has arrived and is ready to begin operations. Yes, sir, replied the communications officer. As their ship moved closer to the station, other vessels began to notice them. Some alien commanders sent messages asking about the small human ship. Others just watched with curiosity. Captain Park could imagine what they were thinking. The human ship looked so ordinary compared to their magnificent vessels. It did not have the beauty of crystal technology or the mystery of biomechanical systems. It was just a simple, functional spacecraft. Captain, said Kim Dong-soo, I am receiving tactical data from the fleet. The Vorthak are expected to arrive in 18 hours. Good, said Captain Park. That gives us time to make final preparations. Han Sora looked up from her engineering station. Sir, should I begin the pre-activation sequence for the main array? Captain Park thought for a moment. Once they started that sequence, there would be no going back. The ship would be committed to its mission, and everyone aboard would be committed with it. Not yet, he said. Let us join the fleet first. I want to hear what the other commanders have planned. First Officer Choi understood what he meant. The alien fleets would try to fight the Vorthak in traditional ways, with big guns and strong shields. They would learn that traditional methods would not work against this enemy. Then it would be time for the human ship to show them a different way. The determination continued its approach to Kepler Station. Inside the ship, the crew worked quietly and efficiently. They all knew what their ship could do. They all knew what it would cost. But they also knew that sometimes one ship really could make all the difference. The big space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark between the stars. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from all over the galaxy docked at its many ports. Today, all the important leaders from different alien races had come here for an emergency meeting. Inside the main meeting room, hundreds of strange creatures sat around a circular table that stretched far across the floor. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled in the light. Others were covered in water that never dripped off their bodies. There were aliens with too many arms, aliens with no arms at all, and aliens that looked like living metal. They were all scared. For 3 months, a terrible enemy called the Vorthak had been attacking planets on the edge of the galaxy. The Vorthak ships were alive but also mechanical at the same time. They ate entire worlds, taking everything and leaving nothing behind. Already, 17 planets had been destroyed. Every race in the galaxy had sent their best warships to fight. The crystal people called Etherians had brought 200 ships. The water aliens known as Deep Ones had sent 150 vessels. Even the space nomads called Star Wanderers had given their entire fleet of 300 ships. But the humans had only promised one ship. Ambassador Lee Tae-jin stood in the center of the room. He was an older human man with gray hair and calm eyes. All the alien leaders were looking at him with anger and confusion. Their strange voices filled the room as they spoke in dozens of different languages. Chancellor Vextar was the leader of the Crystal People. His body looked like a walking diamond and his voice sounded like wind chimes. Human, he said, your people claim to understand war. But you send only one ship against an enemy that has eaten 17 worlds. Do humans not know how to count? The water alien leader, High Tide Zurmala, moved forward. Water flowed around her body like a living dress. The Vorthak fleet has 2,000 ships, she said. Each one is deadly. Your single vessel will be destroyed in seconds. This is not bravery. This is stupidity. War singer Thexani of the Metal People made a sound like breaking glass. It was how her species laughed. Perhaps humans have finally gone crazy from fear, she said. One ship cannot fight 2,000. Even a child would know this. Ambassador Li Taijin listened to all their complaints without changing his expression. His face stayed calm and peaceful. When the room became quiet, he spoke in a clear, steady voice. The ship we send will be enough, he said. Humanity keeps its promises. The aliens became even more angry. Chancellor Vextar's crystal body flashed with bright colors, which meant he was very upset. Enough, he said. One ship is enough? Human, are you making fun of us? We have studied your military records, said another alien leader. This one looked like a giant insect with too many eyes. Humans are good fighters on planets, but space battles are different. You need many ships, not just one. High Tide Zurmala's water body began to bubble, which showed her anger. When the Vorthak reach the Sol system, they will destroy Earth in one day. And you send just one ship to help us stop them? Ambassador Li Taijin looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked angry. Some looked worried. Some looked like they thought humans were completely crazy. I understand your concerns, he said, but you do not understand humans. We do not waste lives or resources. When we promise one ship, it is because one ship is what is needed. War singer Thexani made her glass-breaking laugh again. Needed for what? To die gloriously? To show the galaxy that humans are brave fools? To win, Li Taijin said simply. The room became very quiet. All the aliens stared at the human ambassador. Some of their translators must have made mistakes because they asked their computers to repeat what he had said. Win? Chancellor Vextar asked. With one ship against 2,000? Yes, High Tide Zurmala moved closer to the human. Ambassador Li, I have fought the Vorthak. I have seen what their weapons do to planets. One of their smallest ships could destroy your largest city. How can one human ship defeat them all? Li Taijin smiled for the first time during the meeting. It was a small, quiet smile, but it made some of the aliens nervous. High Tide Zurmala, how many Vorthak ships have you actually destroyed? The water alien moved back. That is not the point. They are too strong. Their biomechanical technology is beyond anything we understand. But you have not destroyed any, Li Taijin said. None of you have. In all your battles with all your ships, you have slowed them down. You have made them work harder. But you have not stopped them. The insect alien clicked his mandibles together angrily. Because they are too powerful. No weapon we have can truly hurt them. Exactly, said Li Taijin. Your weapons cannot hurt them. But our weapon can. What weapon? Demanded Chancellor Vextar. Show us these magical human weapons that can do what our greatest technology cannot. Li Taijin shook his head. The weapon is not magical. It is scientific. And it is already on its way to the rally point at Kepler Station. War singer Thexani's metal body made a scraping sound of disbelief. One ship with one weapon will save the galaxy? One ship with the right weapon, Li Taijin corrected. Other species have tried to fight the Vorthak with brute force. You make bigger guns, stronger shields, faster ships. But bigger is not always better. Sometimes the smallest key opens the largest door. High Tide Zurmala's water body began to calm down. What do you mean?
I mean that humans solve problems differently than other species.
You see the Vorthak as an unstoppable force, so you try to build an unstoppable force to fight them. We see them as a problem to be solved. The alien leaders looked at each other with their strange eyes and faces. Some were beginning to look curious instead of just angry. And you think your one ship can solve this problem? Asked Chancellor Vextar. I know it can, said Li Taijin. The UES determination is not just a ship. It is humanity's answer to an impossible question. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the aliens could not change the human ambassador's mind. When it was over, they were still angry and confused. How could the humans be so confident with just one ship? As Li Taijin walked back to his quarters, he thought about the ship that was already traveling through space toward the battle. The aliens would understand soon enough. Humans had always been good at finding new ways to solve old problems. The Vorthak had never fought humans before. They were about to learn something new.